Hey everyone, welcome to SOFCat. This is your Sergeant Major Matt Parrish, and today we've got an awesome opportunity to look at a very unique program within U.S. Special Operations Command. You know, one of the unique things about SOCOM is we talk about it being service-like, similar to the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, or Air Force. And one of the ways that it's service-like is in the fact that we have this unique ability to acquire new technology. We can iterate and innovate much faster than some of the conventional channels because we have our own acquisitions executive here in SOF AT&L, Acquisition Technology and Logistics, which is a major part of this headquarters. And so today we want to take a look at one of the unique programs within that helps to rapidly bridge the gap between what's happening on the ground or in the air in different places tactically and our acquisitions folks here. So today we got two awesome guests joining us today. Lieutenant Colonel Chris Michele. I'm going to butcher that every time. I tried it. I think I swung and missed, but we're going to get there. And Captain Ricky Garcia. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us. How you guys doing today?
Hey, Sergeant Major Parrish, thank you very much. It wasn't too bad at all.
Okay.
You
all right.
did well.
I'm going to get better. I practiced. I did my best.
You got to use the hand.
I know. I needed the Italian
Michele.
Yeah. All right.
But seriously, thanks for having us.
Yeah, no. I'm always happy to have people on, especially in person. It's such a better conversation. So let's get started. I guess I'll go to you first, sir. To give us a quick background. How'd you come in? Why'd you come in? What did you want to do? What are you doing now? Kind of thing, and get us sort of up to the point where you became part of this program.
Sure, that was that's a whole lot of.
I know. Yeah.
So, condense it in.
Yeah. So background. I'm acquisition officer. Have been my entire career.
Okay.
I was blessed back in 2007 to be asked to come in and be a part of this Ghost program, and we can talk about the kind of the genesis of the program maybe a little bit later. But it really has been fundamental. The experience that I had down here, as early as 2007, as a then very junior captain, was really fundamental in just my mindset and how I approached my career as an AC officer, how I incorporated that operational mindset into it, and it kind of brought it into a program office that can sometimes get to be commercial in feel, or can be a little more corporate in feel. And so if we're not careful, we can perhaps lose a little bit of that focus that so many of us do have, but it gets kind of pushed out. So.
No, it's a good point. I mean, as we talk about sort of the headquarters here, there is a disconnect at times, and it's easy to become sort of corporate here when you're talking about some of those things, even though, the headquarters and SOF AT&L specifically are filled with former operators, folks that have a ton of experience. You still, have the opportunity. The further you spend away from the tea room, the squadron bay, whatever, the more opportunity it is to sort of lose some of that thought process. So I think it's a good idea. Yep. Ricky, how about you? Other than growing mustaches, give us how'd you get here?
Yeah, so we're actually all growing mustaches in the Ghost program right now. It's a new thing. But yeah, so I actually wasn't an acquisition officer my entire career. Right. I actually started a little bit of a stint at pilot training, but turns out you have to not get airsick when you fly the plane. So I made it.
Someone should have told him that.
Yeah, I didn't get the memo, obviously. Right. But yeah, made it past a little bit of T6s, and then after that, washed out. But then I was given a good opportunity to join the Acquisition Corps, and I was asked to join the Ghost program actually about this time last year, and I've been blessed with all this awesome opportunity to open up my eyes and see what's actually going on downrange. I just got back helping out operators do some stuff actually about 12 hours ago, caught on the plane. Okay. And I'm happy to talk to you about the Ghost program.
All right, so let's do that first. I'll stay with you.
Okay.
Give us, because we're kind of talking, we're saying Ghost program, all that stuff.
Yeah,
First of all, what the heck is it right now? And then I'll go back over to you for how did it get started? So hit me with, what is it now? What are you involved with as hey, 12 hours ago, I'm making sure the guys and gals are getting the right thing?
Okay, yeah, let's start off. So the Ghost program is a program that's housed under PEO Fixed Wing, which is housed underneath SOF AT&L. What does that actually mean?
Yeah.
So it's a bunch of junior Air Force acquirers, and now we're actually getting some Army guys and some Navy guys into the mix that essentially go out and help SOF AT&L get after acquisitions. Okay. What does that actually mean? And let's break that down. So that means going down to the field with the operators, seeing what's going on in the field, and then bringing that back here to HQ, and then making sure contracts are written, Things are executed as such. Because, I mean, how many times have you seen it? You got a piece of kit, you're downrange, and everyone's working on this one specific way of working it and getting out around a problem because that's just how the software was coded, that's how the kit was built. How do you break that, right? And how do you actually go back to HQ and tell them, hey, this thing's all messed up, and how do we actually fix that problem? That's what a Ghost would be able to do. Go in there, translate that need into an actual thing in acquisition talk so you actually can get stuff to the warfighter ASAP.
I can't tell you how many times on a team or during an exercise or something, there's either a great idea to fix a problem or to change something that's already being fielded, but it seems like there's just a chasm of bureaucracy in between us and who actually makes that decision or tries to field that thing. And, we don't have time to figure out how to become acquirers or write it in the right language. I actually was told a couple times as a team guy and then as a team sergeant, like, oh, you start filling out these forms and it goes to whatever. And I was like, nope, we'll just keep putting tape over the thing. Like, we're good. So, all right. So tell me kind of how did this thing get started? Who sort of recognized this and like, how can we bridge this gap? And I know you were one of the first ones that kind of stepped into that role. So get some history on it.
Yeah, great segue. Thanks. So it all started with an airframe modification that we wanted to do down here at Acquisition Technology and Logistics at AT&L. And the PEO, the boss at the time, was in Air Force 06, recognized that he didn't necessarily have the staff that he needed with the expertise that he needed in the locations that he needed to make that happen on what we would have then deemed a timely effect.
What kind of platform are we talking about at the time? Are we allowed to say?
Yeah, we can. Right, this was it's a predecessor to the gunship.
Okay,
kind of a thing. So at any rate, he put this program together where he envisioned bringing junior Air Force acquisition officers. So that's a pretty small group, and introducing them to this unique culture. That we call special operations. It is a little bit of a different culture, and then use them to push them forward because they're uniformed, so that they have a little more flexibility than some of the other folks, and just help to solve problems on a very real time basis. The case in point, if I can example from my time. So there was another platform that we were modifying. And the platform was already downrange. The modifications that we wanted to do downrange obviously required us to bring the airplane down. So who's going to coordinate with the battle captain to bring an airplane out of orbit, out of an ISR orbit?
So this is a reconnaissance aircraft flying around. We realize we want to change something, but they're actively using this to provide, intel support for operations.
For ongoing operations, right.
Okay.
So we can become that liaison from the acquisition office to the ops, understanding the needs of both organizations and work with them to deconflict that. That can't always happen when you're thousands of miles apart. Right. Yeah. So getting us embedded into those organizations, into those operational units, allows us the insight to know when it's not feasible to bring it down, or to convince them that this modification is just important enough that if you can give me 30 days or give me 15 days, here are the operational impacts that you can have.
Yeah, actually, internally clinched when you said, "Give me 30 days."
Yeah, 30 days.
That was my question. The battle captain. But let's say, I'm the SOF sergeant major. I'm trying to hit targets every night, and you're giving me the pitch that, hey, I promise this thing is, How have you seen that work in your career as you had that opportunity to be able to say, hey, I know we've got a cost-benefit analysis here. The juice has got to be worth the squeeze, but I'm telling you, if we put it down for 2 weeks, you're going to get this much better at whatever, targeting in this case, or reconnaissance early warning.
So I think the benefit to you to the operator was the lesson that I took away from that in just the professional maturation I took. I realized that I don't have the maneuver space to make a mistake in my planning. If I want to come to you with a mission impact, like you just described, I better get it right, and I better get it right the first time, and just have everything lined up. So that has created a lot of discipline in my own program management, and that which we try to get onto the teams, is to ensure that we have checked all of those things. So when it does come time, you trust us to have done that, and we've built that trust kind of prior to the emergency, so to speak, right? And you just can trust us to get the job done.
Here's a good example that I had just recently about maybe this was last Friday. We were launching, we'll just say, some platforms down at White Sands, testing these aircraft out. And when we launched them, something actually happened where it did not make its mission. And so we needed to find a way to fix it. So me and the vendor worked on stuff to actually straight up hot glue. Can't even think about the word, what it's called. It's
solder something together?
It's not solder. What is it? Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But basically, we stitched this thing together with duct tape and stuff, and we launched it, and it went great. But what's next? Now we have all these lessons learned. We brought it back to HQ. We have a plan, and when we actually take this thing into ops, it's good to go. It's no problems at all.
Right. Okay. So as you're getting out there for these current things, how are you approaching? It's easy to say like, yeah, I'm just going to cozy up with the operations guys and whatever. Like, what's your approach to make sure that as you get into that, you do build that trust that Chris is talking about?
Oh, well, first thing is lexicon. So before this job, right, I was helping cyber warfare operators do stuff.
Okay.
And with that, there's a lot of weird terminology that they use, ones and zeros speak, that I don't know what that actually means.
Right.
But the terminology that I would do is I would go in there, sit with the operators, and try to get some stuff. I even convinced my unit to actually go out and let me have some cyber school background so that I can actually go out and help out. And that type of attitude of sitting with the operators, learning how the actual mission works, so you don't show up to a place and then try to direct things when a guy or gal down there was actually going out saving lives, and here comes insert ghost number or whatever to try to help you solve your problem. You get a lot more credibility when you know the mission and what actually is going down in the field and who the players are, and then walk in there and say, hey, I see this problem, I see X, Y, and Z. I present you this solution that we can probably work together on. What do you say? And I'm not going to force anything out there because I know in the end the mission commander is the mission commander. Mm-hmm. But I do know that if I can help you to provide value, I'm here for you.
Yeah. Somewhere right now I can hear the incoherent screaming of like some PsyOps listeners who are wondering, by this time we've said ghost like 35 times, and I know there's got to be a turf war because obviously they also use that. So like tell me how, all right, as you guys are starting this program, where'd the ghost thing come from?
Oh yeah. What you say to that? And then I have some extra gee whiz after.
There are like PsyOps guys, out in the hallway right now, ready to come fight you guys.
Ready, walk out the door, get punted.
Yeah, we certainly can't take credit for it, right? I mean, it's a pretty recognizable logo out of World War II.
Right.
But the intent, so the original Ghost program, or Ghost Platoon, out of World War II, was designed to be an innovative type of organization, right? How can we put an image forward that could be new and confusing? So that was their mission. Our mission is try to be innovative. How do we get a new attitude into a workforce, or how do we more appropriately increase the number of folks with a certain attitude into it? Yeah. And so that's really where the logo came from. Is something for us to latch on, something for us to rally around.
I guess prior to this program, what I'm understanding for this, right? Like the problem we're solving, obviously, is to try to shorten that gap in between what's happening in the field and back here, but also, a lot of folks that work in that sort of realm don't come up with any really SOF experience specifically, right? So we're injecting that earlier than what it would have probably taken prior to this program, right? Like you would have probably had to do multiple tours in different places to try to gain some experience to really understand kind of the consequences of some of those decisions, whether it's timelines or whether it's capability tweaks. Is that kind of where we're feeling like, hey, this is where we're solving that problem? Is that
that jives really well. So I mean, here's a good example. So in Air Force, we have an acquisition arm associated, but SOCOM's got its own acquisition arm, and all the J's were all in the same building. So everything moves incredibly fast here, and you can see the consequences of decisions that I make rattle across the different numbers almost instantaneously, which is something that I don't really get to see too often in my short career. But being able to see that firsthand really broadened my horizon on how decisions I make matter in the long run as things get built out.
So I think one of those attitudes that can sometimes get lost in the acquisition core is the importance of our function to operations. It's not something that lives or is isolated outside of it, but it's an integral part of operations. So just like Ricky was saying, down here at SOCOM, it's very common for us to go from the AE's office to the 2 to the 3 to the 5 to the 8, to do an intel analysis, do planning, programming, moving money around. And because that's kind of where all that magic happens. But being able to talk to the operational units in the same day that you're talking to the money fiscal planners is just an invaluable skill for us. And on the outside, sometimes that kill chain is much longer as we try to skip across commands, up larger commands, maybe even have to get out to the DC area. So down here, for a junior officer to be exposed to that very early, they can understand how imperative that is, and they can force that function then into their own mentality when they get out to the larger force. So again, just kind of increase that number of junior officers that have that look, prior. Prior to
So now that you went through this program, you've obviously continued to move on into bigger and better assignments, all these things. What have you found from your experience that you had here? What do you draw on daily that's really like refined how you work now?
Yeah, for me personally, I would say that it is just that constant reminder of who the end user is and the focus on that. So my job as an acquisition officer isn't to make it through the next program management review, or it's not to make it through the next test cycle. It's to get the capability that we promised someone on the timeline that we promised them, and to get it to them with as few hitches and giddy-ups along the way. I want to say perfect the first time. We don't always hit it perfect the first time. But it really is just to keep that end user in mind and know that I'm part of that chain, not something that just lives outside it.
Yeah, absolute transparency is key. So making sure, one thing that we saw here, I got to work with the MCS COP here, users here at SOCOM, and bringing them into the table while the acquisition people are talking as well, planning out how we want to do the next program increments and stuff. They're actually sitting in the room with us, showing us, hey, this doesn't work, that works, this is how I would use this thing. And then everyone's like, oh yeah, that's great. And we could take input immediately and actually go out.
MCS COP, Mission Command Center, or Mission Command System, common operating picture, like ability to fuse a bunch of different information into one single thing, right?
Yep. Okay. I should have said that. Yeah.
That's okay.
Throwing acronyms around and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no worries.
But
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, is there any way that we need to be doing more to try to shorten that gap in between? Because I'll tell you, the smartest guy in the Army or gal in the Army is like probably like a 3-year on an ODA E6 junior Charlie somewhere who's like had just enough experience that he like thinks he knows everything. Like, how do we, that guy comes up with more ideas on a daily basis. Like, he's already come up with 2 ideas since he's been listening to this thing. Like, how do we shorten the gap in between, like, I'm down on the ground, I see what's wrong, and you've got 1,000 people that work here at AT&L. How do I shorten that gap? Like, what's my way of getting less bureaucracy in between those? Like, as this program expands, is that one way to do it? Like, as we have Army Ghosts, now they're going into Army elements. Like, I'm just curious, is there something we could be doing more if we're seeing success in this?
Sure.
What could we be doing to shorten it even further?
So I have 2 things, Ricky. You want to take it? Do you have any thoughts? Or?
The immediate thing that you can take back immediately is making sure that you have qualified acquisition expertise going to these people to actually figure out what the requirements are. So, you probably see this all the time. We see it in every single military base. You'll see, like, the lawn mowed on this side of the lawn, and then this side over there is never done because whoever wrote that contract or whatever forgot to write the paragraph for that little portion of the base or something like that.
I'm in the Army, not the Air Force, so we have to mow our own
you have to mow your own.
That's okay. That's all right.
Yeah.
No worries.
But
I get the analogy. Actually, I've spent more time on Air Force bases in my career than Army ones, but
nice.
I get the analogy. Yeah. Okay, keep going. All right, grass mowed. I know that someone just takes care of that for you in the Air Force, but we've got some poor idiot who was late to formation who's mowing right now. Hopefully listening to SOFcast. Good on you. Specialist, whoever. Yeah. All right. So getting people that know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And not think they know what they're doing. So getting people that are going to be able to come up here and influence things, closer to the front. How much time am I looking at if I'm team sergeant or something, and I get one of you guys knocking on my door, like, hey, I want to come hang out and learn what you do and all that stuff. Like, what are we looking at? How long are you going to be there? How much time is taken away from, like, what's my barrier of entry here? What's my cost if I'm a leader down in the force?
Well, I think, well, okay, I could take it from a couple of different angles. I'll choose one of them right now. So, in my opinion, we shouldn't have to interrupt ops to do our job.
I completely agree, Rick.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. What am I doing? I'd say, hey, you need to stop the saw and just like give me a little bit of less.
Yeah, it's probably not gonna work.
No, that's a wrong move. The way that I should work is I should shadow like a ghost and find out how things work. Not from like a mission standpoint, but from like how the organization works in general. Like, where does paper go and where does paper go out? How do people interact with each other, and how does the actual unit coherently move forward, essentially? And then from there, I can take that type of stuff, figure out what the actual problem is on the floor, find the delta, and when I find the delta, I go to the acquisition people, the program office, in this case called the SPO, and say, hey, this is X, Y, and Z problem. And they're like, oh, well, this shouldn't have been a problem because we wrote something like that. But then someone probably misread or misinterpreted the contract. And then there's a delta from there that we can go out and meet with the vendor and fix that problem with it. Or if it's an actual like con-op type thing, we can work with the actual operational unit and tell them, hey, X, Y, and Z, you got to use the system like this as opposed to like this. This will solve all your problems. And it's a little bit of a conversation, so I can't really put a timestamp exactly on how everything is, but that's the mentality I would get after. I know you probably have some more stuff.
For sure. Oh, yeah. So maybe a little more philosophical. You ask, what kind of interruption do we have, and what kind of time frame you're looking at? My hope and my plan is always to create a relationship with the unit, so it's not a one-off come down to visit you. If I'm going to acquire something for you, I'm then part of that unit, right? And so you're invited to come along to all of our development activities. I expect to be able to come into your unit and talk to your guys. So the responsibility then becomes twofold. One, from our standpoint, coming in and talk to you, I need to understand the limitations of what I'm able to promise.
Okay.
Right? So I'm going to listen. I'm going to take on your inputs. Then we're going to talk about what we may or may not be able to do. The other side of that is our senior leadership has to trust that you and I can talk at that level, and that we're not getting a foul from senior strategic objectives, and investment strategies from a capability standpoint. But again, I go back to, I guess Ricky already mentioned it, that transparency and relationship. You should expect that we have built that on a daily basis, and so it doesn't become how much time are you going to take away from it. It's just like, I'm just part of your unit.
What's the biggest win you've seen?
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Okay. Which one? Okay, here's I think the largest one. He wasn't actually a ghost. That's the only reason I'm kind of hesitating. But he may as well have been. This acquisition program manager that I worked with down here was tied so closely to his operational unit.
Okay.
You mentioned some of our producers here mentioned that prisoner swap kind of concept, right? Yeah. We talked about that. We'd take people out of the program office, put them into the unit. Take people out of the unit, put them in the program office. Okay. Yeah. All that fast forward, we delivered the newest platform of this particular aircraft. And
can you tell me what it is? Or can you not?
Yeah. Let's not.
Probably not.
If you don't but we delivered.
We're talking a lot of platforms. That's why
we are.
Asking.
So it was an airborne
I'm a listener.
platform.
I've heard a lot of platforms. I'm not sure if we're diving off of them or what we're doing. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So this
no
is
worries. Hey man, it's unclassified.
This is an airborne platform.
Okay.
Where the squadron commander called down to the program manager and asked the program manager to join him on the flight, in the bed down flight into theater. So, one is the capability got there. That's the win. Capability got there when we said it would. That was the win. The operator could use the capability for what they needed it for. Then that hidden win, though, is the relationship that they had developed was so tight that the unit commander brings the acquisition PM with him for day one on ops, so that acquirer is checking to make sure everything's work. If something didn't work, go back and solve the problem for him. So that type of relationship, I thought was one of the greatest wins that I've seen.
Yeah, makes sense. What do you think, Ricky? What do you got? What's the biggest win?
My personal biggest win as an acquisition guy was when I was working in a cyber warfare with a cyber warfare unit, and I was inside their operational room for like about maybe 2 months working on this system for them day in and day out. And then the biggest compliment I ever got was an offer by the DO to join the unit on the side while I was still in acquisitions. I had no cyber experience whatsoever, but there's that much trust that they trusted me to actually operate on their system to help their specific mission.
Yeah.
Can I go to another one?
Sure.
A little more tactical.
Hey, sure.
So we had a ghost. This is I lose track of time sometimes. About 3 years ago or so, we pushed a ghost down. This particular captain came to us from NGA.
Okay.
So we pushed him forward. He was on the ops floor, and he realized that all the maps that they were using were really, really old.
Okay.
And he was perplexed by that. He was frustrated by that. Reached back to his office, and in 24 hours had all the maps updated. And I'm talking about bringing just geo maps up decades newer. I mean, had that ghost not been there on that ops floor, had he not had the initiative to reach back and solve a problem that he saw, even though it wasn't a scripted problem, wasn't a task problem, wasn't a program problem, and fixed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, so as this thing is sort of expanding, what's next for it? As you're looking at whatever, Space Force Guardians, Army folks, whatever, like where do you guys see this in 5 years? Is this just continuing to incrementally grow? Do you see any changes coming to it, or what do you guys think? Be future tellers for me.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
What do you
Got
think
a crystal
of 5
ball
years?
down there for you?
Oh, yeah. So
then-
right now at the Ghost Cave, the big feature right now is we've expanded from Air Force officers. We now have Air Force enlisted men and women, and we also now have civilians as well. We've also expanded from just program managers and engineers to actual contract specialists that actually can do it. So now you have ghosts who can write contracts. You have ghosts who can engineer programs. You have ghosts who can do cost, schedule, performance actions. You have the whole shebang.
I'm glad they can, because I didn't understand any of it. So
Oh, yeah.
I'm just messing with you.
No, you're good.
No, so people that understand, like that's part of the key of having SOF AT&L be the size that it is, so that we have, we have a tendency in other places to like always think it has to be a Green Beret or a Ranger or whatever to do.
Right.
And if you come up to the SOCOM headquarters, you notice like there's way more people that are just the best at whatever they do, which might be contracting officer or whatever else. We want the best in the world at the task, not necessarily some school they went to at some point back in the day.
Right.
So sorry to cut you off. What else you see in there?
You're good.
Yeah.
Then shoot, I lost my train of thought.
Good. I really did that. I really just crushed you.
Yeah,
All
you
right.
just crushed me.
No
But
worries.
I'll
No worries.
jump in, and if you remember.
Oh, well, I
cut
mean,
me
the
off
other
with that.
piece of the puzzle is, yes, we do have Space Force Guardians right now. One of them actually is deployed forward from here. He left
Like
4
Mars or something?
No.
I'm messing with you.
Bounce back,
I'm messing with you. I'm messing with
But
you.
yeah, but now we have Army Ghosts now. That's brand new,
do.
basically.
I think you talk about the next 5 years. What are you going to see? You nailed it when you talked about the headquarters often brings in the experts in their field as they're getting to the pinnacle of their career.
Okay.
What we're seeing now, after the program's been around for 15 years or so, the junior guys that started are now taking over senior positions. We're seeing these well-rounded acquisition officers, and we have plenty of well-rounded acquisition officers that aren't ghosts, right? I don't mean to say you have to be a ghost to be successful. Just not the case. We have plenty of them out there. But we have a larger core of officers hitting the senior ranks that have just this additional piece of information in their toolkit, and they're able to now then coach it down. So we have more train the trainer kind of thing we would see out there. But we have those teachers at the highest levels of acquisitions. So we just this next summer we have a first program executive officer coming in, which down here at SOCOM that would be like that colonel, that 06 level. Out in the Air Force, that's a 1 or 2 star. So we're having them hit some very, very high levels where they can use their experience to better impact the.
Yeah. I mean, for me, like when I was a cadet at the Air Force Academy, one of my instructors was a ghost, and that's how I learned about the program beforehand. And then actually, ghost number 4, I worked with back in my when I was a second lieutenant down in San Antonio. Mike Perry, shout out to Pico. But I mean, I've been able to learn a lot from them before I was a ghost, just from their attitude and how they get after solving problems for operational units.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, so as we're kind of wrapping up, I want you guys to have what's your final thought? Anything else that you want to cover? Got people listening around the world. Shout out again to that kid that's mowing the grass. Ricky, what do you got?
For all the acquisition people out there, just listen to your operators. They know how best to use the system because they're going to be the one using it day in and out. We're not smarter than them. They're the ones out there kicking ass and taking names, and make sure we get them the right kit that they need.
Yeah.
Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, so just from this program standpoint, it's a great program, and I would highly encourage anyone to look into it, talk to former ghosts, just to kind of get an imperative there. But it is not necessary for you to be a ghost to be a successful acquisition officer, right?
Sure.
There's plenty of room to learn other skills, and bring that to the fight. And Ricky really nailed it. If I were to give one plea out to our acquisition career, our core rather, is to just remember what the end state is. And the end state isn't whatever piece of paper you're trying to get signed. It isn't whatever review. It is getting kit to the operators in the time that we tell them we're going to do it. And that's just key.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most important. It's sort of, you got to remember that in any staff function anywhere. It can become where you get task saturated on whatever the next thing you're trying to get, and it's like no, like take a step back and realize like you got to be able to connect what you're doing day to day to the men and women on the front lines. Last question I've got, and then we'll wrap up. If I am, most of you all are from, kind of fixed wing, Air Force, all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
If I'm somebody listening and I've got a either an idea or I want one of you guys or gals to come down and look at something that we're working on or try to help us fix a problem, like is there an ability for me to ask for a ghost?
To ask for a ghost to come down to your unit.
Like let's say I'm in AFSOC somewhere, I'm listening to this while I'm turning a wrench on something that's perpetually broken, and I can't figure out how to break this chasm in between me and the people who are fielding it.
Okay, yeah. So
how do I ring up the ghost hotline in the ghost cave or whatever you said?
Yeah.
You'd be like, get out here because I got stuff I need to fix.
Right. So I'm going to say absolutely yes. There is a ghost cave.
All right.
There
that was a long lead up. If it was a no.
There is a distro list, and now I hope Colonel Kibler doesn't get mad at me for this, but I would absolutely say, send the email, right? Reach out to fixedwing_ghost@SOCOM.mil, if I'm not mistaken.
That is correct.
That sounds about right. And it's in the global too. So I just ask the question. Start that engagement if you have it, and we'll figure the answer out for you.
No, it's awesome.
Too easy.
Yeah, awesome. Well, gents, thanks for coming on. Thanks for talking about it. Appreciate you guys coming in person, especially.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sick.
Hey, and for all you guys out there, guys and gals, I should say, thanks for listening to another episode of SOFcast. Hope you guys are already following USSOCOM at Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. And if you're watching this or you're listening to this, either subscribe, give a thumbs up, 5-star review, send it to somebody, share it on social media. I don't know, I'm out of things, but do all those things. And if you've got feedback, you can always get us SOFcast@SOCOM.mil. And on behalf of all of us here at USSOCOM, thanks for listening to another episode of SOFcast.